Welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. Today we're on episode 21. It is our Disc Debrief Part 3, here again with Ericka Kerns. Thank you for being here today.
Hi.
All right, so in episodes 18 and 20, we broke down the DISC assessment. We discussed in episode 18 the D and I in DISC, which is dominance and influence. And then in episode 20, we broke down the S and C, which is steadiness and compliance or conscientiousness. You might hear some different terms substituted in there. They're used interchangeably. They all basically mean the same thing. But what we did was we unpacked on the air Ericka's DISC assessment and her results. Because so many times I've had folks ask me, can I just take the DISC assessment, read the assessment on my own? Like, what is the value of going through a DISC debrief with you? So I really wanted to give you guys that experience of being a fly on the wall and listening into the types of conversation that you can have in a DISC debrief. Really having someone ask those questions that maybe you haven't asked yourself before. And take some additional time to reflect on who you are, what your strengths are, what opportunities for growth you have so that you can positively influence the lives of the people around you. So Ericka, I know, has taken numerous DISC assessments at this point. How many do you think you've had?
No less than 3, maybe 4, but definitely several.
Yeah. So, and you can see that every time we have a conversation, even about DISC, I feel like you are learning something about yourself. Maybe you're at a different point in your life and you're hearing things differently. But I would say that even our time spent together in those 2 episodes, you had some key takeaways.
Certainly. Yeah. Every time I revisit it, there is something new. There's something not so new that I'm reevaluating. And so it's consistently a helpful resource.
Yeah, great. So I know we talked about using DISC as a tool in the variety of ways, and I get questions about this all the time as well, about using it for candidate screening. That came up again today. I received a communication from a client about it. I see people use it in candidate screening. I see them using it after the fact, after a hire has taken place, and really trying to integrate folks into the team and learn how to better communicate with them and let them advocate for their needs. So there's lots of ways in relation to a new team member that it can be used. But I see this also used in organizations where folks have worked together for a really long period of time and they think they know everything about one another. And then you go through this process and it can be eye-opening, not just learning more about yourself, but the people around you. So what would you say was your biggest takeaway in sitting down and looking at the DISC component of your assessment thus far?
The biggest takeaway. That's a great question. I think the first time I took it, the biggest takeaway was, holy crap, this thing is so informative. I think it's important you had shared with us that it's not necessarily categorizing you. You're not one thing over the other. You are tapping into all of these areas. And your situation, your work group, different things in life, adapted versus natural, really impact it. So it was an eye-opener because I love to learn about what makes us tick. Why am I like this? What am I noticing? It helped me verbalize. Most recently in the previous episodes, sitting down and revisiting how things have changed, why that might be. Learning that it matters what environment you're taking the assessment in. There were some great key points there, certainly. Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad you found value in it. Today is this last component of this DISC process, and this is really the second half of the report. So when I spend time with my clients and we go through this process, we do 2 initial sessions on DISC, and then the third session is on EQ. So we really did hold these sessions just as I would with a client. So today we're talking about emotional intelligence, and I know that's something you enjoy talking about. So tell me what it is about emotional intelligence that you find to be so interesting.
Sure. So first, I find it very fun for me to explain what EQ or emotional intelligence is to individuals who aren't aware. Oftentimes we refer to or consider IQ, our intelligence levels, when we are considering how we're working with others and whatnot. But when it comes to emotional intelligence, it's exactly that. I want to know all about myself because I have a drive to improve. I want to be, it's so cliche. Here I am with another one. So for this episode, the cliche is be the best me I can be. But truly, that's the motivation. I am aware of how I perceive myself. I'm aware of how others may, and I want to know why. The ins and outs, and so that I can know as much as possible. So I love the study of emotional intelligence because it tells me about myself, but also others. I am the type to sit and fester and try to figure things out and analyze, and this as a foundation helps me to see some leading insights.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you do a great job of explaining it.
Thanks.
So I'm glad that you're so passionate about it. I think we're going to do the challenge up front today.
Okay.
All right. So what do we want to challenge our listeners to do in relation to their emotional intelligence?
Yes. So the last episode, I completely blanked. So the previous challenge was to take the DISC assessment if you weren't familiar with it, because it's such a valuable fact-finding resource. And so I've talked about that enough. The challenge I wanted to give last time was to take the DISC assessment and then run with it. Solicit feedback. Is this something you see in me? How can I improve? Tell me about it, right? Dive deep into it. The safe context with you, but also implementing it in their lives. Today's challenge, I've brought another recommendation for a book. I love Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Dr. Henry Cloud. I actually subscribe to his newsletters as well and follow him on all the Meads, the social media accounts. Because
Did you just say Meads? Can we just stop? Did you just say that?
I'm so young. I have to relate to your younger listeners. Yes, I'm keeping us young.
Okay, continue.
So on the Meads on social medias, I follow, and you have to add an S on everything. Sorry, the medias. I follow Dr. Henry Cloud very closely because all of his work resonates strongly with me. So the challenge is to find and read Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Dr. Henry Cloud, and we've mentioned it very briefly, but I also love Working Genius, and I understand you might have that coming up on a podcast with a visitor. Might be. So tune in, subscribe, make sure that you listen to that episode. It's going to be really valuable.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the challenge. And I want to just kind of start with an overview of what people typically learn about themselves by taking an emotional intelligence assessment. So some of this you might be familiar with, and some of it maybe not in this level of detail. But we're going to break emotional intelligence into 5 components for today's conversation. Okay, so the first of those 5 being motivation. So when folks take this assessment, there is a score that comes out based on your intrinsic drive. Okay, intrinsic, I said that key word, right? So that motivation to get out of bed in the morning, do what you need to do to reach whatever your definition of success is, right? And so for each of these components that we look at today, I want to spend a couple of minutes thinking about, okay, well, if someone hasn't taken the assessment, they just want to listen to this episode and really reflect on, well, how am I doing in each of these things? Let's talk about the look-fors, okay? So typically, those people that have higher levels of motivation, we're going to see those people setting goals for their life, right? They're very clear in their intentions. They're always working towards something. They're very passionate about what they do, right? They can't wait to get out of bed in the morning. They might even say, I would do what I'm doing for a living, even if I didn't get paid to do it. Did I just say living?
Living.
What I do for a living. Even if I didn't get paid to do it, right? So it's that level of passion. So a lot of times people might come into their debrief appointment and look at their level of motivation on that chart, and it might be alarming, because what I typically find is the majority of my clients come in around the mid-60s in their motivation. They're like, I work so hard, I'm very motivated, and they're like almost offended by it because they're like, I am driven. I'm always accomplishing things, right? I don't get concerned until I see something come in lower than the 50th percentile, and I'll tell you why. That is when every single time I see that number, I say, are you still passionate about what you do?
Ooh.
And they'll like look at me like, how did you know?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you know that I'm not excited to be at work? I'm like, you can tell me, you can be honest. That's what it is. So I don't get concerned about it until people feel like they're not in alignment with the thing that just brings them joy and energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course you're not motivated to go to work if it's not an environment you enjoy, or if you're not doing something that is in alignment with your disc style, right? In alignment with your strengths, your purpose. So that's the thing that I'm always looking for is, are we at least above that midpoint where, okay, they're passionate about it. Maybe right now they don't have goals that are really driving them forward. Maybe within the organization they don't have opportunities for growth. Maybe there's not a clear picture of how you can grow within the organization. Of course, that could lead to a lack of motivation. So I always question what might be driving the fact that it isn't any higher. Right?
Yeah.
So what would you say about your current level of motivation?
Well, it's interesting because when you talk about it, I too would be the type of individual to say, come up with a rebuttal. No, I am motivated. Sorry if you hear my flipping. I, come prepared with my binder.
Let's talk about the thickness of the binder. You said how many times have you taken it?
It's growing. The binder is growing. Well, I was so excited to go through Leadership Academy with you. So this started as my Leadership Academy binder. And then as I grew to value what you bring to the table, I have many more tips and tricks and tools stashed away in this thing. And it's one of my go-tos. It's my development Bible. It's my Sierra. I'll come up with something catchy.
Yeah, well, until you start keeping it on your nightstand,
yeah.
I don't know you've reached this level of motivation that I'm looking for.
Oh, she called me out. Okay. Well, my motivation's around a 65. So I have a passion to work towards the knowledge, based on my surroundings, for others, not necessarily for power. But I do have this internal drive to pursue the goals that are important to me. So I guess I would be, I'm about average in motivation. Are you specifically asking about what my motivation is in life?
I would love to hear your motivation.
Oh, what a loaded question. And I have to preface it by saying I always sit back and laugh, and my pre-screening to engaging in conversations with you is whether or not it's for a therapist or is it for Sierra. And sometimes there are blurred lines there. So I am acknowledging that. Okay. My motivation throughout life, and I do want to acknowledge that life is different right now. The culture is different. We as a nation, as with our society, the world in general, when I was coming up, the boss girl, it wasn't a thing, or it wasn't a celebrated thing yet, right? And so I wanted to not have to rely on anyone. I wanted to bring as much to the table as I could. I didn't want to be in a weak or damsel in distress role. That wasn't my personality, and I identified that early on. So that being said, I wanted to be a helpful partner in life. If I chose to become a mother, if I chose to become a wife, a leader of a business, what have you, I wanted to make sure that I had everything I could at my disposal. So as I came through life, my motivation, while that was the foundation, became wanting to break stigma, surrounding, I don't call it single parenthood, I call it independent. Whether I choose to date or not, and whether, my status as single changes, I am independently parenting. My son's father passed away in 2017, and my focus has been to provide him consistency, stability, and that's my motivation. This intrinsic motivation, the idea to make the world a better place, is very much at the forefront of my mind. I understand I can't change a lot. I can change small things. I can control my reactions most often. I like to think more often than I probably do, but the outlier, well, not necessarily outlier, but yes, my motivation is to break stigma and to achieve what I know I can be for myself, but mostly for this legacy, the next generation I'm raising. Yeah.
I think you do an amazing job of sticking to that and really living it out, for sure. I was thinking about, the folks that are listening who are maybe leading a team of people, and they want to be aware of how folks are feeling about their role, right? Or how motivated they are to come to work each day. The look fors tend to be if you have people that aren't seeking feedback, maybe they're not seeking feedback out of fear of what they're going to hear, right? Or maybe they aren't seeking feedback because they don't really care, because they've already kind of checked out, right? But those people who aren't asking how they're doing and aren't looking for opportunities to grow, that's a key, I would say, indicator that motivation has dropped, especially if you've seen that when they started at the organization, something, has shifted over time.
Sure.
Would you say that there has been any position you found yourself in before where you had just kind of checked out and maybe didn't seek improvement? Because you've always come across to me as a very motivated individual, but have you noticed a connection between the times that you weren't motivated and those moments where you just kind of didn't want feedback or really care what anybody thought?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I always care. I always care about what people think about either the product or my approach, the personal side of it. I think that we call it silent quitting. I have disengaged. And oftentimes that is when I haven't taken the responsibility to practice self-care. I don't like the notion of self-care, but I understand it's important. I just don't like the way society approaches it and describes it right now. So when I say self-care, I mean balance. So in HR, which is what I do for a living, it's draining. It's hard work. Sometimes we get to do the really fun stuff, and that flame to my eye, it feeds me like no other. I have a motivation to go and connect and impact, because I can just make someone smile, and that's enough for me. I'll disengage when it's working on harder things, convoluted things, policy, the intent versus how it's being applied. Is it consistent? We're disrupting or we're impacting people's livelihoods, people's family, how they see and approach the community. So I want to make sure that we're doing what's best, and sometimes that's hard from the HR seat in terms of carrying it out. So I'll become disengaged when I feel there's been an injustice.
Okay.
I'll disengage when I don't feel heard. And it's not that I think oftentimes people will perceive me as needing to be in the limelight or center of attention, and that I only think that my way is the only way. And that's just not the case. I'm more than willing to get perspective and to work collaboratively. But oftentimes I've already run myself ragged thinking and working on it before I bring it to others. So I'll disengage. I'll lose my motivation when I don't feel like there's anything else for me to work for. I feel defeated. Yeah. Deflated.
Okay. That makes total sense and connects to exactly kind of the trend that I've seen over time. I had someone reach out this week about a gentleman that's going to be leaving their office. And over time, we've watched it. He started showing up late, right? He was collaborating less. He wasn't being as thorough, just, all of these changes occurring. And when they sat down to have a conversation about these are the improvements we need to see in a certain period of time before this is just not going to work anymore, at that moment, this gentleman revealed, okay, because I've been looking for other opportunities, right? And it's like, okay, well, we saw it happening. We saw it over time. And, I can't help but think, how that could have been handled differently. That moment you realize that you are in a role that isn't in alignment. How long do you stay there and keep pushing through? Who are you pushing through for, right? Are you pushing through because you're truly trying to make a difference while you're there? Are you pushing through for the paycheck? Why, right? The why behind it. But I really encourage people to stop and think about what they're doing right now, right? Do you really want to be there? Are you having the impact you want to have? And if that's not the place for you, okay, what's that first step you need to take to get in the right place?
Yeah, that's really good. I had an experience where I had an overwhelming sense of loyalty. I know that the responsibility didn't necessarily fall on my shoulders, and that the client at that time, the work group, I was taking care of people who are taking care of people in the community, and so I felt like as that back line of support, that if I knew that I was working well, I knew that I had built rapport and gone in and analyzed and understand their needs, and really just felt like I was knocking out of the park in terms of what I was providing to them. I felt like if I had learned that and I was doing so well for them, that if I had switched or left them, then I was taking away one of the very valuable resources that they had available to them, when so many other individuals or work groups were not functioning as they should to support them. So I had to really sit back and examine why I was disengaging, and that, hey, your product is not as great, and kind of get over the guilt that was associated with that loyalty. I can't leave them, or they're going to be without. So I really had to sit back and look at balancing, right? Okay, well, if I keep doing that, if I keep this self-sacrificing attitude and approach, then it's only going to get worse. And I'm not going to be able to be as great as I know I can be, because it's not serving me any longer. So I think that's hard for people when they realize it's not a fit anymore, and then they have to do the hard work that comes along with change.
Yeah, that's a great example of it. Well, I think that we've covered a good bit on motivation. I want to encourage people, if you're thinking about your current level of motivation and exploring that, ask yourself, what are you passionate about? What brings you joy? Are you doing the things that bring you joy? Are you having the impact you want to have? Those are the kinds of questions that I ask when I'm working with a client and trying to intentionally grow in their emotional intelligence. I say that way because a lot of people ask me, can you improve emotional intelligence? And yes. And that's what I love about it. Typically with IQ, we think of IQ being pretty static, right? But with emotional intelligence, and I love this about these reports, it comes with a list of strategies specifically for you to implement to improve in these areas, so we can really target not which is your lowest score, but which one would have the greatest impact in your day-to-day if we were to focus in on that. So if that's motivation for you, here's your hint. Motivation, in my opinion, impacts all of the other areas.
That's good.
So if you answer these questions that I'm asking today, and Ericka's having you reflect on too, and notice that I'm not really as motivated as I've been before, I would say start there. Even if you hear in the rest of this conversation today, oh, maybe I'm not self-aware either, right? Start with motivation, because I feel it impacts all the other areas. Then we can move on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Anything else about motivation before we move on to the second component of the report?
Yeah, I think you had mentioned success and how it plays into like your idea of success and how that's a motivator. Do you see any correlation between when people tell you what success looks like for them? Like, to me, it's my home life. Am I able to go do my work and do it well, but also come home and be successful in providing that consistency and stability? With the motivators, do you find any correlation between those types of success meaning something to people and their motivation being higher or lower?
Okay, so while you were saying that, I couldn't help but think about how cool would it be if there were a natural versus adapted motivation, because I could see very, very different scores in relation to motivation for your family and providing, right? Versus I'm in the workplace and this is not for me, right? So I couldn't help but, I know that's not what you asked, but I couldn't help but think of that, how powerful. So my question to you is, would you see a big difference between the two?
Absolutely. It's genius, and I hope that you can provide that tool to us at some point.
Yeah, I'll work on it.
I can see that because, in the workplace, I'm not looking to climb a ladder. I don't ever want to be top tier. I don't want to be a CHRO or even a director level. That comes with a lot of political and just some things that I'm not interested in. My motivation is not to get to the top. My top isn't the top of the ladder. My top is the top of my game. So that would be an amazing workplace versus life because I could see the benefit in both of those. Yeah.
What if I were to say that your top of the game could be top of the ladder? I just want to mention that. Just saying.
I would cry and run out of the room. I think it's not a matter of ability, capability, competencies, right? Yeah. It's I identify what comes along with those things. As a really famous individual once said, "Mo money, mo problems." Mo duties, right? With the title comes greater expectation. It's not that I can't meet the expectation. It's that I'm not willing to take that hardship on. Yeah.
You're exactly right. That makes total sense to me. All right, perfect. Let's move on to the next component. Okay, so part 2 of emotional intelligence, we look at your self-awareness. So self-awareness is that ability to recognize and understand your moods, your emotions, your triggers, right? That's a big one, right? Are you aware of those things that trigger a specific emotion in you so that you can actually proactively consider, how am I going to do this differently next time? I find that the more therapy, going back to therapy, the more therapy someone's been through, the greater the self-awareness.
I sure hope so.
That's why mine's off the charts, girl, because many, many years of therapy. So things to look for higher self-awareness. And I think, honestly, this is the easiest one to really identify. So can this person identify how they're feeling in the moment, their emotions, their emotional triggers, right? Can they identify their own strengths and weaknesses? And what is that difference between others' perception of you and your perception of yourself? Because that's a big one. The people that I sit down with and, we take a hard look at this report for the first time and they say, nope, none of this is true of me. I flip to the self-awareness section.
Matter of fact.
and then I help them to understand that if we were to improve your self-awareness, I think you would realize this report is very true of you, right? And so all of these areas impact how DISC plays out, right? So I think, in my opinion, self-awareness is the easiest one to grow because it just means setting aside time to reflect on who you are, right? Your reactions in different situations, all the things that we can reflect on. If you have someone in your life that maybe struggles to articulate how you're feeling, they seem to respond impulsively, like they haven't really considered that these things are triggers for them. I always laugh because Larry Moss brings up the example of he knows that Northern Virginia traffic is a trigger for him, right? So what does he do? He plays classical music. It helps him regulate, right? So when you know that you have these triggers, what are you doing about it? That's the regulation piece, but you have to identify it exists first. Identifying your pattern in behavior. What is patterns in behavior? DISC, right? See how it all ties together?
Oh, yeah.
And those that want to be self-aware are asking for feedback, right?
Yes.
Because they want to know the difference between how do you see me versus how do I see myself. So just some things to be aware of. So how is your self-awareness, Ericka?
Here comes the humility. Well, the chart says 67. I like to think that I am wildly self-aware because all I do is reflect. 67.
That is not self-awareness.
Sorry. That's social awareness.
Because I was going to say, girl, this is your strength.
It's so aware of myself.
Yeah,
it sure
flip
is.
One more flip past motivation.
Are you having fun listening yet?
Okay, right here. No, it's because
it's fine. I have
where you have mixed up all your pages.
Here it is. We found it.
Right here. Okay. Now you can brag on it.
If you're looking at your report, it's page 38 now.
It's not the same for everyone.
Correct. And we weren't going to talk about numbers anyway, but I want you to know, listener and Sierra, that I have located the correct page, and I'm very happy to share with you that I'm above average in all areas of life, but especially this one. All right, self-awareness. I actually am closer to the 90 out of 100, and I do a lot of reflection, like I said. Yeah. So yeah, I'm very, very self-aware.
Yeah, those people that aren't, I actually had this last week. someone was looking for a resource to grow in their self-awareness, and I think you have it here. The emotions wheel, the feelings wheel, is a very powerful tool, very simple, yet powerful, to sit down and really explore in any given moment of the day. You can set an alarm, and every day at a certain time stop and just reflect on, how am I feeling right now? What caused me to feel that way, right? We tend to say happy, sad, angry, right? Like 5 emotions. And the wheel allows us to expand upon that. Okay, if I am sad, what is that sadness really coming from? Is that sadness out of disappointment? That's one level out, right? And so we look at that. Okay, well, disappointment, break that one down. Disappointed about what? Disappointed in myself, right? What is the disappointment? So I find that it's really helpful to use that tool if you're trying to grow in your self-awareness. And so if people want that resource, I am going to do my own version of it. I told Ericka before the show, there's a spelling error on the one that I've used as a resource in the past. So I'm going to create my own. I can't take it anymore. So that's one. I also would recommend those of you trying to build self-awareness, ask for feedback from others. Ericka, how might you go about asking for feedback from others? What is that like?
Yeah. So I learned to solicit feedback in my studies for human resources, but I really truly looked at creating an action plan based off of an activity you had given me. And it was after examining those results that a light bulb really went off. Sometimes it could be really simple. Sometimes soliciting feedback is just as simple as going back and saying to someone, hey, when we talked about this, or when I saw this, I thought this about it. Did you see the same thing? Open-ended questions, allowing them space to engage and speak honestly, right? And you have to make sure that they feel comfortable and safe to do that. So your body language, your tone, all of those factors come into play. But soliciting feedback sometimes is just as easy as being willing to engage in a conversation and being ready for what's provided to you in response.
Yeah. It's a really great point. So I recently had to solicit feedback as a part of a leadership class that I'm in through Hagerstown Community College. And I reached out to a few people and I asked them for the feedback. And I tried to explain upfront why I was doing it, right? And establish why I wanted this feedback, because my fear was that people were going to elevate the ratings because they wanted to fuel my confidence in myself, right? I had this fear that they were just going to send me back this wonderful score, and it didn't really reflect what they saw. So I like begging them, right? Like, please just give me the true analysis. It's not doing anyone any favors to just try and help me feel good about myself. The reason I'm bringing that up is because I always think, even if you're casually asking for feedback, no matter how you're doing it, maybe explain why you're asking for feedback and how you're going to use it to grow, because I think it's important people take it seriously and give a true evaluation of what they see, not just what you want to hear.
Right. No, that's a great point. Yeah.
Okay. And then just in general, mindfulness is a big word right now. What does it mean to you? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but to be mindful, what's mindfulness to you?
Consideration, being in touch with reality. We know that reality is your own perception, right? How you are experiencing things. But I think being mindfulness is practicing awareness, right? Sometimes we can just barrel through life and not stop to reflect, not stop to consider. And so, being mindful, taking time. I won't keep saying practicing the pause, but being aware of your surroundings, your behaviors. Sometimes mindfulness looks like having an empty mind, being mindful of needing the balance, the break. So,
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to add on to it. I think of metacognition, so thinking about your thinking, right? So not just thinking it, but stopping and considering what causes me to think these things and feel these things, right?
Yeah.
That's the part that I really have to pause and consider a lot. but with the intention of always trying to grow in my understanding of myself and just grow in general, not to focus on the past too much, because that's the other thing, is I don't want to get caught up in the past and that dictating who I am, right? So thinking about your thinking so you can truly improve upon yourself.
I like that. That looks like, for me, taking intrusive thoughts when they're popping in and floating around, taking, letting the thought be there and then taking it into account and then releasing it, right? Controlling, and that's part of regulation. I know we'll get to that, but that's, when you talk about that, that's what comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. So those of you looking to grow in self-awareness, hopefully you have some ideas based off of that conversation. Again, as a part of this report, I think, what do you have? 11 different tips there. I always encourage people, do a Google search and how can I improve my self-awareness? Look at the tips, and please don't try to do everything all at once. Yeah. Choose a couple of things that really resonate with you and you would be willing to put in practice. And then be consistent and give yourself time. And if you don't see something changing right away, that doesn't mean it's not working.
Yeah.
So, all right, moving on now to self-regulation. I'll give you a moment to find that in your binder.
Ma'am, it's page 39 and I was already ahead of you. Thank you so much.
All right, this is going to be a great conversation, this one right here.
Is it?
Yes. All right, so the third component we're going to look at is self-regulation. Self-regulation is your ability to control or redirect disruptive impulses, your emotions, being able to think before acting. So basically taking all the things that you have become aware of through your reflection and doing something about it. That's all it really is. It's all that thinking about your thinking you've done. Now, what do you do with it? Can you control it?
Just that simple, huh?
Just that simple. No, it's not. In a moment, we'll talk about scores here, but both of my regulation scores are low.
Really?
And I don't know if I ever shared that with you before. But I always joke that it's because I choose not to control them.
Yeah, it's an active choice.
Yes. I am aware enough to know that that's an active choice. So those that have well-developed self-regulation, these are some of the things. They're going to stay calm under pressure. If they find themselves in new situations, facing new circumstances, right, they're going to be able to adapt pretty quickly and easily. They handle stress pretty effectively. You're going to see people that are just calm, cool, and collected the majority of the time. They have really, really high self-regulation, right? It doesn't mean behind the scenes they're not thinking things or feeling things, but they're really considering how their behaviors might impact others, right? And we'll get into the social part of this too. But that's why we regulate ourselves, right? If you're going to choose to regulate yourself, why are you regulating? Well, for me, it's because I know that thing that I'm thinking is not going to serve anybody well if it comes out of my mouth, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about your self-regulation. You don't have to give scores. Okay. How do you feel about your self-regulation? Where are we right now?
Where the self-awareness is my highest, self-regulation is my lowest. Okay. Yeah, it's not dramatically low, but it's not high enough to make me feel great right now. It's absolutely something that I am aware of. In retrospect, right? Hindsight is 20/20. But in the moment, isn't that a different story? And that's where the score comes from.
Yeah. Okay, but what do we do about it?
That's a great question.
Are you looking for solutions here today?
That's what we're here for. Yeah.
Okay, so folks that are noticing that they're not controlling their emotions well, or they're not able to practice the pause, as Ericka likes to say. They intend to, but as soon as they say something, they realize, that was not the right moment or time or place, right? A couple of things that we can do. All right. Number one, we just need to slow you down a little bit. And this is almost every single time. The high dominance individuals moving at the speed of light that just want to get the results they're looking for have difficulty with self-regulation. Do you see the connection between the two?
I do, absolutely. And I think I was mulling over it earlier. I think it's the confidence part of my D coming into play. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm saying is going to be charming and witty, or pick somebody's nerves, but I don't care because I've already considered it. And practicing the pause means stopping and allowing room for what needs to happen, the reflection, the regulation, what have you. So yeah, sounds easy.
Yeah, I know. Slowing down is not easy.
Yeah.
So it's also that piece of what I said earlier about being proactive. So before you walk into that situation, are you considering the possible responses, right? What you might be up against. If this were to happen, how could I respond appropriately to that based on the situation I find myself in? Right?
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of the work in self-regulation isn't the slowing down in the moment. It's the preparation in advance and knowing that if this happens, I am pre-programming myself. This is how I'm going to choose to respond.
Amen, sister. I can tell you that where I'm lacking self-regulation, and I feel like when we say, they have a low score, they're just out here willy-nilly flailing their arms and, getting into arguments and whatnot. No, truly, and I can see the difference, and we laugh about the binder, but the binder is confidence. It's preparation. When I prepare, I have the tools ready to call on if-then statement, right?
Yeah.
So when I prepare for the possibilities, I am successful in regulation. Knowing that there's people in the room that trigger me because of their personality type. Knowing the topic is really touchy, and so we have to approach it. When I'm prepared, I am successful, period. Go. Yeah.
There you go. And I would like to say in general, that should be the case for everybody. You know what I mean? The more prepared you are, the more successful you're going to be across the board. So maybe that's the area people focus their growth on. Are you truly prepared going into any moment, right? Can we always be prepared? No. There's unexpected stuff going on. So what do we do when it's unexpected, right? So stress management techniques, it's different for every single person what is going to be effective. Whether it is taking a walk, right? Knowing that, I don't know if you have a specific physical response to stress, but my chest gets tight. It feels like an elephant sitting on my chest. The moment I feel the chest tightness, I have to disengage from whatever it is, and I have to either stand up, walk around, something. I have to switch because it literally feels like it's starting to build. It builds, it builds, it builds. What am I going to do with it? There are two options, right? If I stay in that moment, there's going to either be yelling and anger,
a meltdown,
right? Or tears. Those are the two options for Sierra, okay? So in order to avoid that, I have to stand up and walk away. If I don't have the option to walk away, box breathing, do you know what that is?
I don't. Please share with me. What's box breathing?
So I love this because I'm a visual person.
Okay.
So even if you draw a box, with your finger, it is 4-count breathing. Okay. You're going to, as if you're drawing a box, first line, wherever you want to start, you're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold, next line, for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds, right? And it's like drawing a box, and you can literally visualize it as you're doing it. And regulating your breathing. You are focused so much on the breathing and the count.
Everything else falls aside.
Yeah.
That's good.
I expect you to report back on how that's going by the end of the day, because I'm sure you're going to find...
I'm triggered right now.
Find yourself in a situation where you might need it.
Your producer.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry, Matt.
When you walk out of this room, you should just stop and start counting and breathe.
Excuse me, could you hold on a second? Thank you, Matt. That's our stellar producer practicing live box breathing. If you could all just pause and let me practice this so I don't steal any more of his pins. Anywho, box breathing's great. I do use breathing for self-regulation, but that only came up this year. I was really, it was not effective for me. I wasn't effective for it. But I don't know, something about breathing. I've never used the box technique. I understand holding the count. And I learned it from the social medias. Some influencer posted how important our breathing is for many aspects of our health, and had presented the counts with breathing and how humans aren't actually breathing the way that we're supposed to.
Like the belly breathing thing?
Yes, and oxygen
I've
intake.
tried so many times to breathe with my stomach.
This feels weird. Well, then it comes to the point where, okay, am I in the privacy of my office, or I'm in the middle of a meeting trying to do this? And they're like, is she constipated? Is she, what's going on with her face? Because I can't regulate my facial expressions to save my life.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anywho.
You can't yet.
Yet.
I will not allow this can't stuff.
Wow. I feel really great right now. Yet. I'm going to write it down. I'm taking notes. No, box breathing, it sounds great. I will continue. I will implement the box portion.
Okay.
And I can see that being pretty effective for me.
I actually find the hold to be very hard after the breathing out and the hold with no air in the lungs. Those 4 seconds are hard for me. So I don't know what it is, but I can't think about anything else. But this is going to be a long 4 seconds on this one. And it really does pull me out of the moment. I often also think about, is this something that I'm even going to remember next week?
Yeah. How important is it?
Yeah. Maybe in the moment it feels like it, but when you reflect on it, not so much.
Yeah, that's good.
So any sort of stress management techniques that work for you, again, it's different for everyone. So maybe you already have something, for the listeners out there, you have something that works. Just make sure you're putting it into practice. A lot of times, the self-awareness piece of reflecting back to past circumstances allows you to really prepare to regulate in the moment as well. So those are just a couple of tips. Do you have any questions about self-regulation?
I don't think so. Not that I have many right now. My personality type, I'm spitting my Rolodex of all the questions. So nothing specific right now, but I might follow up with you. I know your clients have coaching and accountability sessions. I think that if I were to be in that situation based off of this DISC and emotional intelligence debrief, I would be coming back to you looking for materials, resources. Like these techniques are great, but I'm also a big reader, and so I want to read further into books. It. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, let's move on to the next component. So component 4. So just to recap, we've gone through motivation, self-awareness, and self-regulation. So these last 2 components, 4 and 5, are social awareness and social regulation. So those are the 5 components. And when you guys receive a report, it's actually a circle graph. And what we're looking for those self and social pieces is balance in your wheel is what we're trying to achieve. But as I said to Ericka before the episode and mentioned before, just because it's the lowest score doesn't mean that it's the one you focus on first. We're looking for greatest impact. So sometimes we notice maybe someone's really, really strong in the area of self, and then the social needs attention. Or maybe someone's really self and socially aware, but both regulation areas need support. So just really being able to look at the big picture and how those are all working together. So social awareness, pretty self-explanatory based on the name. It's your ability to understand others' emotions, but then also how your words and actions are impacting them.
Yes.
Okay. Can you see how they feed into one another though? Because if you are not able to self-regulate, it's going to impact the people around you, right? It's going to impact both social aspects as well. So the social awareness piece, the indicators of someone who's well developed, they're really in tune with other people's emotional cues. Noticing when someone's really off today, this is not normal behavior for them. The body language, being able to analyze and know this person's not open for conversation right now. Ooh, they're not a morning person, right? I'm not going to approach their desk until after 10 a.m., right?
Yeah.
These well-developed folks are also going to have empathy. They're going to show empathy and really consider, I want to be careful with this situation because it could impact this person in this way. So I really want to understand you I want to understand what drives you and how I can support you, right? It has a lot to do with what you can do to support others and also regulating their emotions, right? That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so, in my opinion, the social aspect is so much more difficult because you're adding in a whole other layer of complexity.
Yeah.
Right? So, how do you feel you do with the social awareness piece?
Sure. While you were talking, I was practicing active listening for those that listened to the prior episode. What came to mind was it depends on my environment. Now, just breaking it down to networking, and it sounds terrible, and it made me cringe the thought, but if I find value in that group, in that room, am I going to be engaging and more courteous and conscientious of their triggers, of what I'm perceiving, their body language, who they're talking to, what they're talking about, all those things? Chances are, if I don't find myself connecting with them, then I lose interest, and I'm just there, and I'm less of my influencer and connector. But I feel like I'm really great about picking up on those things in a room. It's just about my motivation and what time of day it is. So, for example, in HR, if I'm doing an employee investigation and I'm having to regulate myself as well as them based on the conversation and what we're talking about or the intent, it looks much different than when I'm out networking and getting to have fun. Yeah.
That's a really good point. Thanks for sharing that. I want people to be aware of some look-fors if we're not really as well developed in social awareness. So what you're going to see there are people who just really can't read the room, right? They walk in, and you know how you can walk into a room and you can really feel like what the energy of that room is, what that vibe is, right? Sure do. And there are people that sometimes will walk in and you'll just be taken aback by like how they behave. Like, can't you read this room? That was not what we needed in here right now. That is someone who needs better social awareness. Also thinking about people who often have misunderstandings, constantly finding themselves in some sort of conflict, right? That might be due to an issue with awareness because they're not stopping to think about how their behaviors, their words are impacting others. So it's leading to conflict or drama between people. So some things to be aware of. Let's talk about strategies for this one. One of the things that I like to share, and I had mentioned to you before I'd send it to you, is empathy mapping. And empathy mapping, it's another organizer. I love graphic organizers.
Me too.
Really put all your ideas down. But it helps you to practice putting yourself into the shoes of the other person or people and considering what information do they have, what might they be thinking, what might they have heard, what might they be feeling, how might their perception of the situation be different from mine. So how might I respond differently based on that, right? So again, here we go into the connection between the awareness and the regulation. The awareness is, I know how I need to handle this situation. The regulation is now am I implementing it properly, right? So that empathy mapping process, obviously you're not going to sit down and do that and hold on just a second. This is a tough situation. Let me grab my graphic organizer, right? That's not ideal. But if you can do that for a couple of situations that you've experienced before and maybe consider other perspectives. I'm laughing right now because of what we read earlier. You might realize that you can then understand why they feel that way based on their experiences, right? Or they have a blind spot, right? And so now I suddenly understand what their blind spot is. They didn't have that information. I was holding them to an expectation that was never communicated, right?
That's good.
It's the miscommunication that happens all the time. So that is, in my mind, a great strategy, because the more you practice it on situations that have already occurred, then in the moment you can, hold on a second, let me read this a little differently in the moment. So that's my number one strategy.
That's
for
really
that.
Good.
I also think that what you brought up a couple of minutes ago, active listening, that's a huge one. The more you can practice that and really read into the body language, the emotion behind what someone is saying, and really trying to understand how they're feeling in that moment. I think really trying to get in tune with that helps to grow social awareness. I'm curious because I want folks to have an idea of the resources in this. There are 9 strategies on this social awareness page of things that you can do to further develop it. Can you share a couple of those and maybe ones that would resonate with you?
Sure, I'd love to. And by some, you mean all. Here we go. We don't have that kind of time. I understand. So it says what Ericka can do based off of my results. I can attempt to predict and understand the emotional responses of others before communicating my point of view. For the D in me,
Okay,
sorry.
Keep going.
No, truly though, the D, the determining portion of that, I was going to say disciplinary. It's not. Sorry.
Dominance.
Yeah. Though it probably should be. This is taking a turn for the worse. The dominance portion does not want me to do that. So that's, I can see why that's number 1.
Yeah. Maybe circle that. Can I
would
provide a recommendation?
I did it a couple times. There you go.
You need more ink.
Yeah. Observe nonverbal behavior to evaluate the emotional temperature of others. I feel that I'm really good at that.
I think you are really good at that.
Analyze and understand things from others' perspectives before responding to peers at work or family members. I have struggled with that in the past. It's not as large of an area of opportunity for me now that I'm more considerate. Thinking of the other personality types, especially as I identify them in my own close daily working teams. So definitely that would have been of great help years ago at the beginning of my career for certain.
Right.
Think about an invisible clarity meter over people and ask yourself, what is their emotional state? Red, clear, or somewhere in between? Know that if it's not clear, the optimal outcome may be compromised. That's interesting, and I would laugh the entire time I was visualizing. But that's good. That's a nice way to like starter as a tool set to kind of gauge and read the room per se.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you on that one real quick because I have actually been in organizations before where they had something on their desk that had their temperature level and they would literally change clear, red, whatever it is, right? So that as you're approaching the desk, you know what you're walking into. Oh my gosh, Ericka is red right now. I'm just going to turn around, walk the other way, and I'm going to wait until it's clear and I can see that she is open to a conversation right now, right?
Until they clear their building.
What a great tool for someone who is struggling with social awareness.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Because there you go. I'm going to match what I'm seeing in the color right there to her body language. Right? And now I know what to look for when Ericka's red.
And to be respectful enough to go beyond just acknowledging it, right? To put it into practice, because I know at times I would barrel over it. I don't really care how you're feeling. That's a you problem and not a me problem. Now let's get to work and do this. Yeah, no, I can see that. Thanks for highlighting
not how
that.
you really feel.
Okay. Another one is continue to develop interpersonal habits, such as listening to others until they're finished with their thought before asking questions or making statements. And we talked about previously, that's a big struggle for me. And I don't mean, that I don't value the person or respect them or what they bring to the table. It's truly an internal issue that I have to work through on a regular basis. My brain works very quickly.
Well, I'm going to compliment you on it because this goes back to awareness. You are aware when you're doing it because you audibly.
I'm sorry I interrupted you. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, you do it all the time.
Yes.
Like, that's not what I meant.
I do.
You say all the time to me, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. And you give me the opportunity to jump back in, or I might say, no, go ahead. It's okay. Or I might say, let me get this out. But you are doing a good job of that.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems silly when you have to say it out loud, like, "Ooh, I did a thing." but that's what it's taken for me to stop doing it or try to work towards it, because it's truly one of my greatest areas of opportunity, but I do acknowledge it. I want people to know that I'm aware of it, so I'm not a terrible human being, but I just always visualize this person in a power suit with a very expensive coffee in their hand and just walking around, not reading the room and just barreling over others. And I just, cringe. I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pick out a couple more, or you feel like it's good?
One more.
One more. Oh. Brace yourself.
Okay.
Be non-judgmental in your interactions with others. Ask questions before drawing conclusions, i.e. you're not a know-it-all. As much...
Oh, were you reading me just then?
No, I was looking you directly in the eye, but I was talking to myself. But if it resonates with you, I encourage you to reflect upon that.
Okay.
No, that's me. The producer sitting outside of the recording studio just laughing. That's also her partner in life. So simmer down there. You're distracting us. Squirrel, non-judgmental. It's so interesting because I had texted you, get it together, people. I had texted you about Myers-Briggs, which I know we don't really, it's just one of those other things. It's something that people are very familiar with if they've gone through a specific course in college, or if their workplace started with a very standard, free, quick, cheap, and that's, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
But my Myers-Briggs is INFJ. It's one of the most rare, and it is judgmental. Though I don't like, again, the assignment of that word. I don't like it.
I think we need to put a better spin on that.
Yeah, but it is judging. It is assessing and analyzing, but it's not judging.
But it makes it sound so much better when you say assessing and analyzing. Keep doing that. Keep assessing and analyzing, but without judgment. That's basically what that's saying. Just don't draw conclusions before you have all the information.
Right. I'll try.
Okay.
Thanks.
I mean,
I'll that one too.
I wasn't talking to you.
No, sure. We're here as a supportive for each other.
Yes,
it's fine.
This is true.
Okay, I circled it.
All right. No, thank you so much for sharing out those ideas.
Yeah.
I love that this comes with tools, right, and ideas, because I never want people to see the results and feel like totally helpless,
like they're left out on a branch.
Oh, look at you!
Thanks for having me back a third time. I'm sorry. If you're regretting it now, I understand.
No, but it's so true. I just want people to feel like they have resources to tap into.
That's the point. Do the thing and then go do the thing. Implement it, practice it. You want to become better.
Yes. So don't just take assessments to see the result and then never look at it again.
Right.
Create a binder.
Yeah. Yes.
Just saying. All right. Ready to move on to the last component? Anything else on that one?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Social regulation, number 5. So social regulation, the ability to manage relationships, build networks, influence others in positive ways. And that is only possible if you really can read the room and you have that social awareness, right? So things to look for when it comes to social regulation. If someone's well developed, you're going to see them really be able to build a relationship with anyone, right? Build rapport very quickly. This goes back to DISC skills too, though, but being able to read the person and know, I can see these are their strengths. These are the things that are standing out to me as like body language of, I need to try a different approach here, right? That's how you build rapport, is reading the person and being able to navigate the conversation in a way that better connects with them, right? So thinking about that, if you see someone's really contributing to a positive work environment, they're helping to bring everyone together, creating a more collaborative team. These are our really effective leaders, right? Have great social regulation. It's very important because they bring people together. They know how to do that. So another thing to consider for that. And then finally, emphasizing mutual goals is important to someone who is regulating very well, because they want the best for everyone, right? So people with really high social regulation, you'll notice that they're trying to find ways to support others' goals. They've read them so well and understand them so well that now they're building at a level of, I'm here to support you, I'm here to build you up, right? Those are the people with really meaningful connections. So we laugh sometimes. I said this to someone the other day. When people throw out the word networking sometimes, I feel like sometimes it is seen as a very casual, social experience where you're maybe having drinks with some friends, like a happy hour, right? Mm-hmm. I think of networking as a very intentional practice.
Oh, yeah, I know you do. Yeah.
So the reason I'm bringing that up is because if I am regulating socially, I'm looking at the people in the room through the perspective of what are they here for? What are they trying to accomplish tonight? How can I help them accomplish their goals, right? That's what I'm looking for. And I tend to not go to those events for myself, but to really read the room and think about it's honestly, my schedule, I put it as building relationships and service, right? Because I see it as an opportunity to give other people the resources they need, build their connections and their network. It'll all come back, right?
Absolutely.
So this is kind of a beefy one and what I believe to be the hardest one to build. If someone is not regulating socially, they're going to be talking down to others, right? They're going to monopolize conversations, not listening at all to what the others have to say, just not thinking about the needs of others. Truthfully, I really think social regulation has a lot to do with the amount of empathy someone has, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about yours.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. All right. So how do you feel about your current level of social regulation? The one that you were trying to describe earlier.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm stuck, to be honest. This is a portion where we are truly debriefing in real time while we're recording, because this one I get stuck on often. Okay. And I know that, and thank you for your perspective on networking, because that was great. I've never looked at it in that manner, but you can see others that do. You can see what their motivators are and whatnot. I don't know. I do know that the tools that they've given me are great, and they really they resound. That's not the right word, but they are sitting with me. The social regulation is hard for me because I always tell people I am an extroverted introvert. The majority of my career is going and connecting and essentially selling an employer why you want to be part of us, and when we lead rooms for trainings, even onboarding while I'm walking them through boring tax forms or explaining policy. I know that I'm capable of it. I know that at times I've been told that I'm good at it, but it's really something I sit with and I'm all over. I'm not confident on this one.
I think that lack of confidence is coming from a place of concern that others don't see you the way you see yourself.
Wow.
I think it is that because you reflect so much on who you are, and you're trying to read people in these situations, you're not sure how they're taking you. People have given you feedback on your behavior before, right? Yeah. Which you really sit down and think about, which I love, right? But I think that this one is only difficult in your mind because you don't know if others are perceiving your true intentions.
That's good.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, you're real good at this. That's good. Yeah, no, I can see. I don't know that I would have been able to verbalize that, to articulate any of that, but that is spot on. I don't know where that comes from. Again, screening, is this for a therapist or for Sierra? I know that I'm guarded. I know that that comes from a place of having to blend in or meld, right? For politics, office politics, whether it's truly a political environment that I've worked in, or if it's office politics where you have to play the games and they're exhausting, and I hate that. Yeah. Wear a mask, a poker face, right? Sometimes HR has to deliver something I do not agree with, but it's not my call sometimes. So yeah, that's spot on.
Okay, so let's think about how to continue to grow in this.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that you identified earlier really is woven throughout a lot of this, and that's active listening.
Yes. Grand theme of my life. Absolutely.
The more you listen, the more you're going to learn about yourself, the more you're going to learn about them, right? So really taking some time to listen and ask more questions, right?
I think a balance to that too. As you're saying that, yes, always. But because you've mentioned I do a lot, I'm always on the run. And especially my full-time career in HR, it is draining. It truly is, whether it's a social battery or you're just doing really hard work that day. Sometimes I don't want to actively listen, so I think I need to be able to identify when I need a break. That way I'm not doing it wrong.
Don't go to a networking event.
Right.
When you did that recently.
I did.
You realized what that day had been like. And you messaged me and said you weren't coming, and then you came, and I was so excited. But you were there for a few minutes, and you realized I think that's awesome, because imagine all of the conversations you would have had that night where you would have been totally disengaged, nodding and smiling and not being authentic.
Right, misrepresenting myself or my objectives. Absolutely. There are times I used to hate letting people down. I am so big on following through. If you say you're going to do something, you be a person of your word. That's your character, and you show up and do it. As I have grown into a professional and a person that wears multiple hats, while I do agree, I still hold firm to that, I also know that there's flexibility that's needed. And so when I identify that I'm peopled out, I'm not going to go and be my best self. It's best for me not to show up. There used to be times where I was openly criticized for that. Just just get over it. No, I know what's best for me. And so
hold
that's
that
great.
Boundary, girl. And I'm glad that you did. And you know what? In my mind, you did follow through. You showed up. You made an appearance. I forced a hug on you.
Right? I'm not a hugger, but I'll give you Sierra a hug.
I forced it. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, but you and Scott Harvard every single time. Scott will say, as I'm hugging him, I'm not really a hugger, and I'm like, and you're gonna take it.
Just listen, we have perfected our handshakes. I'm telling you what, it's not overpowering, but it's not weak. And I know the same of Scott. You just take our handshake and let it be enough. No, give us the warm and fuzzies. We do need it. I'll always object.
You do need it.
I have a best friend who says the same thing. Well, you're gonna have it, so take it. No, it's great. It's great. I wanted to follow through and show up in support of you, but also I know that I have to be careful in allowing myself to continually, I don't want to make it a crutch or an excuse. Well, I could just bail, because then it's going to become a habit, and that's what I'm not going to allow. So I showed up because it was an event where I could. It was on my route home, and I knew that I didn't have to stay the whole time. I wasn't responsible for leading anything. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to be there because of, Sierra Learnership Collaborative. So, it's all about the boundaries and balance.
Well, I was just going to compliment you for putting that into practice.
Thank you.
As you said it. I had also mentioned as a piece of this that those that struggle with social regulation might find themselves in a lot of conflict, right? So really developing conflict resolution strategies for once you get into that position.
Yes.
Right? So I would even... Guys, again, I say that's a Google search, right? There are so many resources. Look into it. And it makes me think of Greg Ward.
Oh, yeah.
And what we went through that training together. So basically, just so you guys know, we're both certified to do it now. So we basically learned over a series of, was it 1 week's worth of sessions?
It was a lot, yeah.
It was actually really hard for me. I'm going to throw that out there, because I had to coach in front of people for the first time. Usually it's just me and the other person in the room, but everybody was listening and judging me. It was so hard.
The teacher didn't want all eyes on her? Couldn't do it?
No.
Interesting.
No. So it's coaching for respect is the concept that Ericka and I went through a training for. And we kind of learned the process to walk people through conflict resolution very carefully over a long period of time. This isn't we sit down and have one conversation with them and magically, we resolve it and everybody walks away happy. But this is great for people who maybe they're in a work environment, they know they're going to continue to work alongside one another, but there has been some sort of falling out. and they need to rebuild that respect for one another in order to continue to work alongside one another. So it's a great tool. Ericka's certified to do it, so you guys could have her in if you're having any challenges. But I bring that up because there were so many great techniques that we learned in those sessions with Greg.
My biggest takeaway from CFR, CRL, Center for Respectful. I always mess it up. I'm so sorry.
Center for Respectful Leadership. We went through this earlier, and I messed it up.
And CFR is the
Coaching for respect.
So many acronyms, but thank you, Greg with 2 G's, and Amy Jo, and Darren, and even our favorite Jay was there. It was a really, really helpful thing. My greatest takeaway was people just want to be heard and understood.
Yeah.
Even the most rough around the edges, at the end of at the very bottom of it, once you get there, they just want to be heard and understood. Yeah.
That was so fun. It makes me want to go back and go through my notes again and put it into practice.
You don't have it printed out in a binder?
Actually, I do.
Oh, well, I have mine here, so.
You're just better prepared than I am. All right. So conflict resolution strategies, active listening, find common ground with other people. That's a big one. So maybe I can't really see something from their perspective, but gosh, we got to find some common ground. There has to be something we agree on, something we both value. Maybe we both are looking for the same outcome, right? So I find all of those to be helpful.
You're in the same place at the same time for a reason. Right? So it's not always difficult to find common ground. Sometimes it feels that way. But if you make it super simple and basic, if I can, I want to share one of the strategies they gave me really quickly. Is it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Just because it builds off of that. And I love it so much. And it's something centered. I center everything around. I don't do surface level. I can't do it. It's painful for me. I'm not able, and you're going to see the expression on my face exactly what I think about it. Happy to listen always, but I don't want to talk to you about the weather. I don't. One of the pieces of
Unless
feedback,
that's a common interest.
True.
If someone has a common interest about weather, we encourage you to talk to one another about it.
Yes.
Like my dad. My dad would be open for that conversation.
You see the beautiful leaves a falling? I can only imagine. Call me Dad Collins. I want to talk to you about the weather. And if you're into the sky, I actually really like to talk to people about the moon, no matter how it looks. It's just amazing to me that it's bright and there. But great. Seeking quality rather than quantity in your social bonds.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, it's not to me, and I know it's not the same for others. I don't hold them to the same expectation or needs that I have for myself, but I don't need quantity ever. It's unmanageable for me. I know a lot of people. I have many acquaintances, but my bond, it's very much quality over quantity. It always will be.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, I'm having trouble with that one.
Really?
Yeah. So the reason I'm having trouble with it is that I agree. And growing up, I had 2 friends. They're still my best friends today. We talk, I told you before, maybe once a year, right? And we're still best friends, and we pick up where we left off. And it was so easy for me to just have 2 friends. I loved that. Yeah. Because it was very easy for me to feel like I was giving them the attention that they deserve, and they know that I care about them, right? So you even know for BNI, just BNI, I have a spreadsheet where I track, 25 people in my group that I want to have a good relationship with. I want to understand who they are personally and professionally, what their goals are, how I can support their goals. Those are just in my one networking group, and we have it mapped out. So within every 6 months, I have a meeting with them, right? Then we have my actual clients, right? We have chamber people. We have all the relationships I've built there. We have my wolf pack. Like, we have all of these people, right? And I have literally, this is a confession, had breakdowns over the fact that someone will come to me from that group of people and say that they feel like they're not valued. They're not getting the attention that they should. And I feel like a total failure in that moment, because when you have quantity, quality fails. And I am struggling with it because I love every one of these people and I want every single one of them to know that I love them. And I don't have enough time in the day to show them, to the point where I'm having to write in my planner, today I want to connect with my sister-in-law, and force myself to make a phone call even though my social battery's gone at the end of the day, right? Or you're putting in my calendar telling me to text my friends because I can't stop long enough to do it. So when I say I'm struggling with it, is because I want to be quality, but I've got a quantity that I can't sustain right now. So fix me, Ericka.
No, well, what do I always say to you? And when you bring those concerns,
I don't know, because I don't actively listen.
Yeah, you are only so much.
I know.
You only have so many hours. You have a business, and the people that love you understand that truly. I'm not going to speak for them, but I'm speaking for them. And if you don't, and you're listening, get it together. We always talk about how people ask you for a Calendly link to schedule themselves, and it's just not possible. That's the truth. You are booked from sun up to sundown because your superpower is giving it your all. You are meeting needs, even when, and you are so overcritical of yourself. You are your worst critic. But from my seat, what I see, I don't know. No comment. Yeah, and producer, pipe down. That's a silent roll. I totally got off track. Thanks a lot, Matthew. Oh, yes, you are meeting needs. You are, even on your bad days, you're doing so great. Like, I sit in awe. Like, even if I could, I don't want to give the level of availability, your ability to connect. You are giving them everything you can in that moment, and that's why they want more of you. Whether it's a personal from your family, right? Those two best friends, your sister-in-law, or it's a new friend where they're like, wow, she's amazing, I need more of her. You don't want to have to limit that. You don't want to have to hold that boundary because you want to give them everything you feel like you deserve, even if it drains you to your last drop.
Yep.
So I see that.
So how do I fix it?
You have to, it's hard, that reality of holding that boundary of, I don't have any more to give. It doesn't, and maybe it's just as simple as that. I see you, I can only do so much. The reality is I don't have enough to give, supply and demand. And that's you're practicing humility. It's not, I'm so popular, everybody wants me, I just can't take it on anymore. No, you are doing the best you can with what you have. And that's all you can do. Well, you can if you want to, but
Well, I want to, because okay, Darkest Brenneman.
Yeah.
She texts me all the time on the fly and says, "Can we have lunch today?"
Oh yeah. And sorry, Darkest, no, it's booked for the next month and a half.
Just a month and a half?
No, a year and a half.
But I feel terrible every single time.
Yeah.
Just terrible that I have to say, no, I'm sorry, I'm at blank. Are you writing?
Lunch with Darkest, I'll get it on the calendar. All you have to do is tell me your need and I'll make it happen.
I know, but... she's a perfect example, but there are other Darkests.
There's many.
Like, there's a bunch of them.
Well, there's only one Darkest. Sorry. There's many people that would love to spend time with you because you're that valuable of a resource.
Okay. Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. But I'm going to express again that that's why I cry over it, because I know that I can't give anymore. Like, I reach,
I know.
I've got nothing left. I tell you the times that I'm having a breakdown. I'm like, I can't do anymore. So if you're listening, I care about you.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
It's just I have reached a quantity that I can't sustain. So that was a big tangent, but I think it's important.
Well, you're here to be vulnerable. You're here to have authentic conversations, and that's what it was. The reality of it is hard, right? You can't always fix everything. You have the skills to draw from, right? You know that when you're able to and you're thinking about something, you're being called on to reach out to them. And if you're able to, that's great. If not, because you're sitting in a session with a client, that's the reality. It's hard. And you're not always going to be able to clarify or help people understand that. So you have to leave them where they're at, knowing that you trust them to be able to regulate or understand or choose not to, if that's what it comes to. You're not going to be able to save. You're not going to be able to make everyone happy. You're doing the best you can with what you have. And the people that love you have got to see that.
Can we just clip this part and play it every day, along with that Seinfeld clip that I pulled?
Sorry, my favorite, Sierra's things about Seinfeld are so cute and wonderful, and here I am. My favorite thing is can't stand ya.
it.
Yeah.
Well, you just don't hear my serenity nows.
Oh man, I'm gonna start signing emails that way. Serenity now. Okay, we're not gonna get on a side. We can have a whole other episode on Seinfeld.
Oh, we're 9 minutes into my collaboration session with Matthew that I need to move on to next. So,
Well,
yeah, I know that's not a priority in your mind. That it has to happen for the retreat to take place. So.
we are so excited about the retreat.
I'm so excited.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Here we are. Social regulation, we made it through. We talked about some tips. Thank you for sharing out and being vulnerable with all of these areas. Truthfully, when I put the word out that people could come on and do a DISC assessment and share, a little bit about themselves, but also be vulnerable and let me ask a lot of questions. I didn't get a lot of response, and I think that's also because people didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah, this is real life stuff.
Yeah. So thank you for being open to that and continuing to grow with me and help me grow, because obviously I need these moments where you just pour into me as well.
Are you human too, Sarah?
I am.
Okay, all right, okay. You are Superwoman, but...
I learn new things every day, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of which... what is something you learned recently?
So many things. I'm the queen of random facts, and because you've put me on the spot and I didn't have a chance to prepare, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because I caught it. We were talking about in the last episode how I have hopefully gotten you to the point where you're trained to not read the message as soon as I send it. Give me a couple seconds to go back, rework it, edit, and then it's fine. So yesterday I caught myself doing it again. This is so silly. I promise you that I am semi-intelligent. I just recently learned that it's not reoccurring. The word is not reoccurring.
No, it's recurring.
Well, thanks, Sierra. Thanks for... How many times have I used that and people were like...
Well, I'm glad that you finally know it's sclafanies.
Oh my gosh, yes. What's wrong with me? I say it so slowly now.
Sclafanies.
Sclafanies.
So guys, I like to go to Sclafanies and support local.
And I like to go to Scalfanies.
Yeah, and every single time she has messaged people about it, she's written Scalfanies, and I let it go for so long until finally one day I was like, I can't take it anymore. You have to know.
Even when you texted me, it didn't click. I had to go look it up and I had to see something visual, and I used expletives. Yeah. Never knew.
Yep.
Do it. Correct me sooner. I'm all for being corrected.
Okay.
Instead of just being put on a line and saying reoccurring every. Oh my gosh.
Okay. Well.
Thanks.
If I notice things, I'll tell you.
No, absolutely.
And you will do the same.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for our DISC Debrief series. So we've had 2 DISC episodes and 1 emotional intelligence. As Ericka shared, we're also going to be going into Working Genius. Not Ericka and I, different guests. So if you're getting tired of her, you'll finally get a break.
Too bad.
She'll be back because we're going to listen to him.
Laughing.
She'll be back for another episode that is on the schedule, I believe. Did you put it on the schedule?
Probably not.
Okay. Ericka is going to schedule
Lunch with Darkest.
Another visit. I've tasked you.
Yes, you have.
With that, because we are going to kind of do a year in review and talk about some important things.
Yes.
Because I've learned a lot and I want to share it.
Awesome.
All right. So let's wrap it up. I thank you so much for listening to the end and all of our banter back and forth. I know you guys understand why I love Ericka so dearly now. I would appreciate it if you would share this with others, if you think they would find value in some of the information you learned today. I also think that it's a great idea for you to subscribe so you get notifications every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. That means that one dropped today. I have to see what the response is to that one. We want to hear from you. I don't hear from you enough, and Ericka actually brought this up previously. If you have questions, if there are topics you would like us to explore, questions for me, questions about leadership development in general, please send them in. so that we can address them on a future episode. We would enjoy that, actually. I don't know what your needs are unless you express them. So please let me know. All right, that's it for now. Until next time, keep branching out.